Hello friends, welcome to the channel. Bob here, and welcome to our continuing Paladin adventures. If you didn't catch the last video, I've come back to P99, really enjoying myself, but I'm kind of trying to do some stuff that I've never done before and go to places that I've never really been to before as well, just as a complete change. So the first thing I'm playing is a Paladin, and then I'm going to try a few different ones and see which one I like the best. So Paladin, Ranger and Shadow Knight, I think are probably going to be the three. Maybe a fourth in a Bard. I always liked the Bard. It seemed, but I wasn't sure how I'd feel about having to keep twist songs and stuff. But I might give that a go as well, because that obviously looks really amazingly complex and amazingly interesting to play. My plan, unless I kind of really don't like the class at all, my plan is to get all of these characters to 50 as like a little tester, because although it might sound ambitious, it's not really. It's just time, isn't it? It's just time. And yeah, and when I've got, like, from a tanky melee character point of view as well, I've got quite a lot of good twinky stuff that I can twink it with. This character's twinked at the moment, which has allowed me to do stuff that I wouldn't normally be able to do. So it just increases, just helps the leveling process basically. Yeah, so Paladin first, then we'll probably go Shadow Knight. I'm not sure about Shadow Knight race. I love the traditional human knight, I guess, that we're used to. Someone who is interested in history, British history, in English history historically. I do like a knight, and I like the old Arthurian legend knights as well. So maybe a human, but I do have an ogre Shadow Knight that's kind of level 15 at the moment. So maybe I'll just carry on playing that dude, because I do love me some ogre. Yeah, and then we'll go on to Bar. I think Ranger will definitely be human. So maybe the Shadow Knight will be something else, but the Ranger will definitely be human. They're definitely going to be going full on Aragorn fetish type stuff with that. Yeah, so that's what's going to be coming up on P99. I know many of you are here for P99, and I've kind of gone about the houses with regards to classic MMOs and modern classic MMOs and stuff. Yeah, and it's kind of circled me back to Everquest. And I come in and play Everquest, and I think to myself, holy, like I went and summoned my corpse, because you can summon your own corpse if you're near enough to it. And I thought to myself, like, just going back to the previous video, I thought to myself, well, holy smoke, there's another mechanic that other MMOs don't have. That modern classic MMOs don't have. There's just so many of them. There's so many little intricacies that games are missing. Not just from Everquest. I've been playing Asheron's Call a bit recently as well. And also some Ultra Online. Yeah, and it's just amazing the stuff that's missing. I just keep finding little mechanics in Everquest that I'm playing on P99 that is just not available. And I think to myself, you know, I guess maybe this is why people are bouncing off the games. You know, they're just not. There's just no complexity there. There's no player options, you know, available. Yeah, shame, but there you go. But this video is going to be a bit more of a fun video. I've got loads of old pads and books and stuff. A little while ago, I even found my old Dungeons and Dragons book, second edition. It was in a box stored somewhere, and I dragged it out and had a little look in it, and it was really cool because it's got little notes I wrote in the book and stuff, like in pencil, so I could rub them out, because I hate defacing stuff like that. But yeah, but I also found some pads with some old. We're going to talk about designing your own classes today, because I used to be very much into designing classes, and I got some notes about classes that I designed or tried to design. Like some of them are very basic, and I thought it might be quite fun to talk about that. And if, like, you've ever sat down and tried to design an RPG or an MMO class and what they were, I thought that might be quite fun. And the one I've got at the top of my list, and was kind of the thing that I was most interested in, but I don't know how the complexity would work with regards to programming and stuff. I didn't really have a proper name for the class, but I called it a metallurgist, essentially. So basically, it was like a magician, but you use metals to summon or create like metal constructs, essentially, like golems, I guess, would be like maybe Golem Master or something, or whatever it would be the thing. Some name better than the name that I came up with, essentially. Yeah, we use these metals to summon these constructs, but that was the main That was the main spell line behind the class. But there were loads of other things as well, like heating metals, like armor and weapons to do damage. Trying to keep within the flavour of the class, throwing like ball bearings or using, manipulating the metal to almost a bit like Magneto, I guess. To throw ball bearings and stuff around the map at mobs and stuff. Thought that would be quite a fun thing. But the main part was summoning the golems or the constructs, and the way it would kind of work, I didn't work it out in my head completely, but the way it would kind of work is that you started off with like an iron construct, for example, and you had some base iron, but you could get different levels of iron that increase the potency of the summons. There will be different metals, so you start off with a weaker metal like a copper construct or something. Then you'd get iron, then you'd mix the metals together to create different effects. Again, I'm not sure how this would play out from a programming point of view. It might be quite complex. And as you went through the world, I guess, I'm not sure if you'd call it a mining skill, but there was a skill that let you detect metals throughout the world in nodes and stuff. And you'd go out looking for you couldn't buy these metals, you had to go out looking for them. So a bit tricky. I'm not sure how modern MMO players would feel about that kind of thing, but yeah, that was the idea behind it. I just like the idea of combining the metals and stuff to create different types of golems that had different effects and stuff. I also wanted to incorporate I'm not sure if anyone, I guess many of you played Diablo 2, where you could turn weapons that you got into golems as well. So I kind of wanted to nick that idea from that class as well, from that game as well. What I thought would be quite interesting was that later on in an MMO's lifespan, you just get loads of magical items that no one really uses. I've got loads of stuff in the bank that I don't use because it's just not. You just bypass them. I guess some people sell them, move them onto newbies and stuff. But I thought that would be quite a good way of removing like loads of magical items and stuff from the world, so that as the metallurgist class, you could use a magical item to summon a mob, or maybe you could break it down. Maybe you could break the item down into a special type of metal that you could use. I also thought of like an epic construct as well, where you had to go around the world killing different mobs for different types of different weapon drops. What basically like legendary weapons that were only dropped from a boss mob. So you had to go around killing boss mobs to get the weapons, and when you got the weapons, you had to break them down with a particular skill. And then you would end up with, I don't know, half a dozen different types of metal, and you would kind of use those metals to create your legendary kind of constructs. It's a bit like a legendary quest, an epic quest in Everquest, for example, that kind of thing. So the metallurgist was the one that I quite liked the most, because I do like pet classes, and I like the idea of having to go around looking for different metals and stuff, and having to gather the metals yourself, and also how you could kind of manipulate them to create different types of constructs and whatnot. As I said, I have no idea what the reality of that would be from a programming point of view. But yeah, that was one of my classes that I jotted notes down for just a class design. The next one was not really a class design, but more of like a revamp, and that was a necromancer. I'm not sure if I would call this a necromancer, but I was kind of trying to go with something along the lines of Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monsters. I didn't do too much of this one, but what I primarily did was you would kill mobs, and the mobs would drop like body parts, and you would use those body parts to summon a mob, I guess in a similar way to the previous class. But what you would do, like if you killed a troll, you got a troll piece, you summoned a mob, it would have a higher regeneration rate, for example. There's loads of things you could do with that kind of thing. But yeah, it was centered around body parts. But I quite like the epic quest for this one that I thought of, where again you went around the world killing bosses and stuff, and you had to get a body part from the boss. And after you'd got like 6 body parts, you had to do some research and stuff. And what would come of it was that you would have like a Frankenstein's monster type thing. So you would have your epic pet that you could summon. And it's I quite like the idea of classes finding drops or getting stuff from like gathering nodes and kind of using those as part of their quest, as part of their kind of like an epic type quest, but also as part of what they need to do to kind of go through the process of becoming like a master at that class. I quite like that. I quite like that theme, and I know it's kind of copying from the metallurgist class a bit, but yeah, I particularly like the idea of creating your own Frankenstein's monster by getting body parts from epic mobs or boss mobs, and then kind of putting them together and stuff. I thought that was quite interesting. Yeah, these are probably rubbish, but I like the concept of them. I like the concept of the metal construct summoner, and I like the concept of like more like a Frankenstein type, because I mean, I say not a necromancer. I mean, Frankenstein's the OP. He's the ultimate necromancer, isn't he? He's the OP necromancer. Let's not beat about the bush. Maybe who's the character from Herbert? Is it Herbert West or something? The character from H.P. Lovecraft's books as well. Yeah, maybe a combination of those two characters. Yeah, I quite like. I like that. But as I said, what the actual coding is on that and how to implement it, I've no idea. But I think what I liked about it was the fact that it just meant that it was very much something that sent you all around the world, basically, which is what I really liked. I like the idea of travelling around the world and doing these kind of things. There's also another class that I quite like the idea of, and it was a demonologist. And the way the demonologist worked was it was very much reliant on like summoning circles and stuff that you draw on the floor. But what I thought this would probably be for more of a player who really liked the class, because there are some downsides. So what I thought with the demonologist was that wherever you were in a dungeon, you could draw these sigils or runes or summoning circles on the floor, and they boosted your power and they allowed you to cast new spells. But without these symbols or circles drawn, the certain spells you couldn't cast, and the spells that you did cast were weaker. But I thought it'd be a good trade-off for a group, because I thought to myself, a group might think, I don't want a demonologist because just you can't. I wanted them to be strong enough so maybe they had more utility to help the group with, but I didn't want them to be like a fully fleshed out finished class. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. I thought to myself, maybe the group will think, I'm not going to take a demonologist, because they just kind of, when you're moving through the dungeon, they're just so limited. But what I thought would be really cool is if you did take a demonologist on and you got to where you wanted to camp, then that's really where they came into their own. So it was like a trade-off for a group. Where you basically where you thought, I will take the demonologist, because when we get to where we're going, when we get to the boss or whatever, these dudes are powerhouses. So they would be less powerful during the actual dungeon crawl than other classes, like casting or magic class, whatever you want to call them. But when they got to where they were going, they were more powerful. And I thought that would be quite nice, because it would make them quite a good solo class as well. So once you got to your camp where you were happy, you could put your symbols or your summoning circle down, and it would allow you to be more powerful. So yeah, a good solo class. Again, like from an epic point of view, not just from an epic point of view, but with this kind of class, I like the idea of going around hunting down other demonologists who were higher level than you. They were rare spawns, maybe they were random spawns. And you would kill them to get their demonology book, so you got new summoning circles and all that kind of stuff. Again, I've got no idea how much this was, how practical this was from a programming point of view. But again, it was just something that I think that I would actually probably play a demonologist. I think, assuming that I gave it enough, assuming that I gave it just enough, so a group was happy for you to tag along until you went. Uber, then I think I would maybe that or the metallurgist, because I like the idea of finding the metals and stuff. I think more classes should incorporate gathering more in their makeup. I feel like I think there are certain things that rangers and druids should have to gather to use within their tool set, that kind of thing. I think it's a missed opportunity. I love the gathering in New World, but even New World doesn't do that. But the last class I kind of just wrote a few notes for was the Bard. The one thing I'd never understood about a Bard was that why do developers, I guess I'm assuming it's just a programming thing again, but why we haven't seen a Bard where you get the options to have so you get like a soloist in the musical sense, and you get a duo, then you get a trio, then you get a quartet, then you get a full band. I don't know why this hasn't been done as much. But again, maybe it's a programming thing, but you could have like a band, like a full group of bards is called a band, and that band can play songs that you can't play on your own or in a duo, or you can play more powerful versions of the songs you've got. Maybe there could be some really cool raid songs that you could use, that you could call upon if you had a full band. I thought that would be quite cool. And obviously, you've got a duoist or a trioist or a trio or a quartet. Maybe they've got maybe they've got a couple of extra songs open to them, not available if you're not if you're not with other bards. I thought that would be really epic. And same with a trio and a quartet and whatnot. I don't know why they've never done that. I thought that would be quite interesting. Also, again, maybe it's a programming thing. Also, this could be a programming thing, but I also thought that if the band members were using different instruments as well, I know it's all getting a bit complicated now. But if you actually had someone using drums, someone using like a string instrument, someone using a brass instrument, all that kind of stuff, maybe you'd also then get some other songs you could play, or maybe some bonuses to Ambassador Divin up there. He's a little dark elf named mobby dude. I might try and kill him at some point if I can. So, and what I quite liked about I called my class, who I don't want to call that Warlord. I think he's probably still read to me. Yeah. The class, I've got my class musicianist, essentially, but it could be a bard, same sort of thing. I've thought of some quests as well. I quite like the idea of like musicianship and bards being like love, to do with love and stuff. And I had a couple of quests where you had to go and kind of woo some ladies or men, or whoever it may be you wanted to woo. Oops. Oh, I thought I fell down the... No, I thought I fell in some water there. Let's pull this dude this way. Where you had to kind of go and play some love songs to people as part of quests and stuff. Maybe an introductory quest. I also kind of thought about some kind of like Guitar Hero type mechanic for playing the instruments, but I don't know how up people would be for that in an MMO. Maybe just a few notes to get the song going. I thought that might be quite interesting. But yeah, the bard was something that the musician was also a class that I would quite like to play. Epic quest, I wasn't too sure. Like maybe for different instruments, or maybe a stringed instrument, you have to go around and get like a piece of gut or something from different boss mobs around the world to use for strings or whatever and stuff, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's again. It's all just pie in the sky, but I think out of all of them, I think the two or three things I would really like to see in a new MMO is the band option for bards. That would be really cool, particularly if when you start playing the songs as a bard, then obviously you're all playing it at the same time, so you get this kind of cacophony of noise. That would be quite good. I like the Frankenstein thing, creating your own Frankenstein monster as your legendary, as your epic pet or whatever it was. And I like the metallurgist as a whole, like just having to find your own metals and manipulating them to give you different effects and stuff. That sounds quite interesting. But there you go. I'm sure though you're sitting here thinking these are rubbish. There's loads of reasons why these classes were never made. But out of all of them, I think I would probably play the Demonologist though, if you could find a cool balance between that kind of trade-off of a group taking you because they know that you're going to be uber when you get to your camp or whatever. I quite like that as a trade-off. But if you've ever tried to come up with any classes or create a class, then let me know in the chat. And maybe I'll if you're feeling brave enough, I'll kind of read them out in another video in the future. But anyway, guys, yeah, Paladin leveling is ongoing. We're moving along. P99, playing P99, trying some new stuff. Yeah, and we'll see how we go. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.